So last night was a really late post, but currently was well received. So that's really cool to hear. Um, this morning alone is, I guess it's not morning anymore, but it's been morning for me all morning. That makes sense. But I woke up in a very unique place. I woke up feeling I got slammed into by a semi truck. Talk about the holy of spiritual hangovers. Literally. Oh, it was awful. But it was wonderful because the Lord didn't let me just stay there feeling completely like trashed. Instead, the Lord commanded me and spoke to me and took me to somewhere very unique, very hard, but very unique. And as much as I'm against Sozos and all that spiritual healing, find Jesus in the secret place kind of stuff, that's like what happened this morning. Wake up from a hangover, spiritual hangover, and I doubt. Sorry, my roommate is sweeping, but you know, wake up from you know that kind of experience and go into a whole nother experience. Like the Lord was not done with me last night. I went to bed around 3, honestly speaking, and I was not tired. I don't remember falling asleep. I guess I just financially crashed. And then, this morning, and I'm just like, okay, I doubt it was a sip of wine I had for communion. It could have been part of why I was so joyous. But I woke up this morning like completely trashed, like so hungover spiritually wise. And I knew it was spiritual because I was just still so filled with joy and laughter. Like it wasn't going away. And so I knew it was, a spiritual hangover, not like physical. But it was pretty, pretty rough. So I laid in bed for a little while. But then the Lord took me somewhere really unique and very cool. So something I did mention last night, but something that Lord whispered to me. Um, and then, whispered to me again today was the words forgive. And I had to face some really hard things this morning. I spoke to the fact of being reluctant to speak yesterday and having, trouble with finding my voice and working on that. Well, the Lord decided to just throw open those prison doors. He loves doing that. Just not always at the best opportune time. But, mm, uh, he is such a good God, but he is crazy sometimes. So this morning, yeah. So those words are resonating, and I finally listened to the new album of Stephanie Gretzinger, which I highly recommend because I just meditated in those for hours. Like time went away and I didn't even realize it, kind of thing. I think it's about noon now. I don't know. But it was just phenomenal. The Lord just had me go through some really deep stuff, making me realize, that even if the physical hands aren't on me that had wronged me, the marks are still there. The presence of those hands are still there. The lies, the manipulation, all of that is still there. And the Lord made me go through it all, each and every person. And sad to say, it's not a small list. But I was able to really face and recognize that even though I say I forgive and I moved on, that those hands were still there, very much still harming me. And so this morning, the Lord really made me face it and really made me come to grips with just the fact. Hold on a sec. I don't know what my dog's doing. Distracting is what she is. But the Lord really made me come to grips with it and really made me face it. And I just felt lighter and lighter and lighter and so full of joy in this. Like, I was going through this in my mind, but in my spiritual eye, I was with Jesus. And the coolest picture came from it was, even though, like, I experienced a lot. And I remember, like, as I was just, you know, basically calling out. And not just necessarily saying, like, I forgive. But I basically use the words, like, I remove the hands, or I take the hands off. And, I guess the idea of that kind of came from the Passion film that I watched yesterday. Just the fact that it was very graphic, but it showed different parts where, you know, the enemy was at work. And it was really hands-on, the way the enemy was at work. And even though I've got so much in my life, like, I can't hold on to this past. I don't want to, you know. I don't want to be forever, you know, terrified of, you know, physical touch, or afraid of being close to people. I mean, it shouldn't have to be that way. I've come really to love hugs, but it's still very much hard to be, you know, super close to people in a physical presence kind of way. And I don't want to forever be bound to that. And that was a prison wall and a chain bondage that I didn't even recognize was holding me back, but it was, you know. And so the Lord really called that out today. And I was able to really just go to Jesus in the secret place and really face these hard things and just physically, in a spiritually way, remove those hands, remove those voices, remove those things, you know, what my eyes saw, what my ears heard, what I felt, you know, it was just so powerful. And as that was happening, I was this Jesus, and there was this little doe, and Jesus had me hold my hands out, and this doe was eating off my hands. And at one point, the doe lied down, and Jesus, well, God was speaking of Jesus, in the sense of sacrifice, and, you know, how he laid down, and it was very physical imagery of just, you know, the reality that Jesus already died for our sins. Why do we have to hold on to these things? Why do we have to keep existing in these realms, you know? We don't need these bondage. And I can't say I'm completely healed. I can't say that I'm completely free. But I am on a good journey in a good way. And no one pushed me this time. Well, except for Jesus. But he's good. But, yeah, you don't know what's going to happen when you wake up. I didn't expect that yesterday would fall in today, but communion was pretty intense. The words were really intense. The angel was really intense. I mean, the whole day was really spiritually intense, but so beautiful and so filled with fellowship and wonderfulness, you know? And then to just wake up this morning and still be so entranced by that, and then to be able to listen to amazing songs, like from Stephanie Gretzinger, her new album. I think it was her new album. I haven't heard them before. It's just so encouraging. And as I was listening to them, I actually kind of took the courage, and I was like, okay, I'm going to put 3 words. So I would post it to Facebook, and I'd be like, you know, this is where I'm at. Like, forgive, forgive, forgive. And then when I heard another song, I felt like I was in a place of just heal, heal, heal. And then I was in another place, you know, it was just rest, rest, rest. And then it was like peace, peace, peace. And it didn't say a lot, but it just was just a reminder, at least a physical reminder that I can go back to, or maybe next year it'll show up on my Facebook page. That'll say, you know, 1 year ago, you know, this, and I'd be like, whoa, that's when Jesus gave me a spiritual hangover and took me through this amazing journey of immense healing. And at one part, Jesus started washing my feet and just moving, you know, up my body, and just telling me, you know, he's washing me of these scars, of these marks that have been put there by people, of these bruises, you know, and just washing me clean. And it was just such a physical act. Like, it was all in my spiritual eye, but it was so physically happening. And I know a lot of things happen, you know, in the secret place and should be talked about, but I feel like that this is something that should be discussed. And Lord had to calm me down many times because I wanted to run to my phone and tell you guys. But But I don't think this is something that should be kept secret, because this is something that where if you're struggling, you need to know that this is possible. You need to know that, and I did talk to God about my anger. I did recognize my anger. I have a lot of anger towards healing, in the Sozo fashion or Seeker's Place kind of thing, but that's where I found it today, and it was really necessary. I wish I could say I could run out this door and just hug anybody that's on the street, but I'm not there yet. But hopefully it allows me to have more freedom and less fear. And it really came down to that, just letting go of fear, letting go of those hands of fear that were so much on me, and really just release. It's just an absolute release of all of that. I just don't so much filled with joy and happiness, and it might be noon or one, I don't know, but that's okay. And it was actually really cool then, because last night I got to the place where I was like, you know what, Lord, I'll just go back to move my car, because the month is almost, the month has started, but it's almost over too, and I was like, I've been there, I've done that, I've lived in my car, I've lived in a hotel, I had to. I'll just go do that. I'll do that again, Lord. That's no problem. Oh, Lord. How childish I am sometimes. But this morning he's like, no, daughter. No, 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 no. So he sent someone to talk to me. And I don't know if I'll be rooming with her or not, but he sent her in my path. And she's like, I'm planning to move this time. Why don't you look for somewhere temporary in between? And wham. Slap in the face kind of thing. Okay, God, I hear ya. So I think I'm going to go that route. It feels less stressful. It feels more beautiful. It feels more God inspiring. So I'm going to look for a sublet or somewhere temporary. Not my car. I am stubborn, but I understand the Lord is speaking. And the fact that he put this young woman in my life just for the past couple days, I was already spoken so much truth, and I haven't even met her yet. But we'll see what the Lord has to say. But I'm really excited for this next journey. And the Lord also reminded me that, oh my word, like I totally forgot. But last year, coming into Easter, I was homeless. I had nowhere to go. I had a church who was willing to pay my hotel rooms. I had some family that stepped up to pay hotel rooms. But because of a really bad situation I got out of when I came to Columbus, it was an uncalled for situation, but it did occur. And unforeseen. Just a lot of violence targeted towards me, and I had absolutely no relation to this person. Sometimes you have to be careful, I'm not the best at that. Too trusting. But I ended up, living in my car. I ended up living in hotels for a while. A couple weeks. Close to a month, probably. And it was super humbling. And I met some really cool people through that. But the Lord talked to me this morning about that as well. And as soon as I went on Facebook, bam, I had a post up. And it was like, this is my last day in the car or in the hotel. And I almost felt like crying, because the Lord whispered that to me this morning, and I completely forgot that last year, coming into Easter, I had nowhere to live. And all I wanted for Easter was a house, a place to call home. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. And the Lord gave it to me through a connection. And sure, it didn't last. Sure, it was roach infested. But it was mine for the short bit it was. And the people I met were incredible there. And it was a safe place. But it was temporary. And now here I am again. Easter is right to, it's tomorrow. And again, I'm searching for my home, for the place, It's crazy how that happens, 1 year later and you're still not where you're supposed to be housing-wise. But you're you're steps closer. This place I've been at is just amazing. There's a lot of rules. There's a lot of boundaries. There's a lot of things I had to learn about what he was like living in a house, and how to really be a good roommate, and how to let a roommate in and keep accountable and that sort of thing. But so I learned a lot, and it's been a really good, safe, nurturing place. but now the Lord wants me, to move on, to get closer to that place He's got in store for me. And I know I have a spiritual place. I know I have a place with Jesus always. But physically wise, it would be nice to just rest my head and not know I'd have to move in a couple months or a year. But, the Lord will provide. So here we go, Easter again, and I'm still searching. He's a funny God that way, but He's truly wonderful. The other thing that kind of stood out to me this morning along with that was I kept hearing the Passover, and I don't fully understand all the spiritual concepts with the Passover, and I'm not Jewish. Maybe Jewish descent, but I'm not Jewish. Or anything like that, but I just kept seeing a banquet table with the the bread and the wine and food on it. And then I kept hearing about Daniel, and it wasn't necessarily the Daniel Lion story, and it wasn't Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, I think that's how you say it, and the fiery flames, but it was the simple fact of when Daniel was given a choice what to eat. I think it's so relevant right now, especially in my life. And I apologize, I'm being so honest this morning, but I think it's really necessary for you to really see that you're not the only one struggling. You're not the only one, who's gone through things. And there's hope and there's light, as always. But I just want to read this short little passage in Daniel. Apologize, it's not the Passion of the Word translation, Message translation, but it's still the good meaning of the words. But it's when Daniel was faced with eating the king's rich food and rich wine, or choosing to eat what the Lord gave him. So let me read that for you guys. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief for permission not to defile himself this way. Now God had caused the official to show favor and sympathy to Daniel, but the official told Daniel, "I am afraid, my lord the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would then have my head because of you." Daniel then said to the guard whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, "Please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see." So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, it looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables instead. To these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. Just think about, the beautiful, I apologize. It is getting a little loud out there. But yeah, just think about Daniel. Just think about that. Not only did he defy the king and say, "I'm not eating that food," but he chose to eat what was right to him, what he felt the Lord had set up for him. He didn't need all that fancy stuff. He just needed the simple stuff that's going to get him by, and keep him close to the Lord. And I just think it's such a beautiful passage because, really, do we want all that rich food? Do we really want all that fancy stuff? Or do we want just the simple gospel, the simple Jesus, the simple cross? Jesus died on the cross for our sins. End of story. Well, it's not end of the story, but it's that easy, And I asked a question yesterday because I'm just not really too familiar with the Catholic beliefs and that based on what I was raised. But I asked, shouldn't we bring people to Christ and not just baptism? Because it seemed like that was kind of where they were going. And they spoke more into that. And I didn't exactly follow everything. But I understood what they were saying, It's all important. It's all part of the story. But most importantly, it's simple. It's simple. It's not rich and fancy. It's not full of verbiage. It's not full of, you can have mirth and joy, but it's not full of all this packed up stuff, It's the gospel. It's Jesus. It's the cross. It's simple. Jesus gave his life for us. And tomorrow we get to celebrate, Jesus is rose, Jesus is alive. And that's just so gorgeous, Someone posted today about Jesus loving Barabbas, and he was the one who set free so Jesus could fulfill God's plan. But it was so beautiful because it was like thinking, I never thought about myself as a Barabbas. I always thought of myself as people in the crowd yelling, crucify, crucify, crucify him. I hate that thought, but that's where I always saw myself. But I never thought of myself as Barabbas up there being like, I'm free. Haha, you. But how many times do we forget Jesus suffered? Jesus died on the cross for our sins, And that Jesus did it because he loved Barabbas. Jesus did it because he loved us. He didn't have to, but he did it because out of love. And I just love that part that I saw this morning that was talking about Jesus loved Barabbas. And Jesus had to go through that because of his love for Barabbas. Barabbas didn't love Jesus. He could care less about Jesus. And a lot of our times we're in that place. But Jesus loved us. And now it's our turn to love Jesus, So just think about that passage in Daniel. Think about whether you want simple, just eat vegetables, If you want to think about it, the Bible could be broccoli. Jesus could be carrot, Just think about it though, like it's not complicated. It doesn't have to be super full mega churches, lots of fancy baptisms and communion every Sunday and all this showy religious stuff. All we need is people on their knees willing to ask Christ into their hearts, willing to welcome him home into their hearts, and willing to go home with him, and willing to go through the next steps, baptism and everything else, It's a simple theology, but we make it so complicated, it seems. So I think that's all I have to share this morning. I hope you guys are blessed and you guys are staying safe. Yeah, I know I shared a lot and it's probably pretty weighty, but I really felt like that was on my heart, and I hope that incredibly blessed you and incredibly encouraged you, because we all go through journeys, we all go through trials, and we fight. If you're a fighter, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You will fight Jesus and God, and oh my word. And it's a survival mechanism. When you are in places, you have to fight to keep surviving, And I've been so long into that. I am just now learning what peace and rest and love is, and how to, show that back. But Jesus is good. He's already got us. He wants us to just give whatever we have to him. He wants us to let go of that fear. Let go of, all of that. Get rid of that fancy food. Get rid of that fancy wine. Pick up the Bible. The simple gospel. Say hello to a friend, a stranger, a neighbor. Bring the gospel to the streets, Angels are walking the streets. They are. But you need to be ready for, you need to be able to see. You need to be able to be open and ready to receive, what God has in store. Because God is here in Columbus. He is here in Chicago. He is here in Philadelphia. He's here all over this world. He's here in China and Italy and South America and Australia. He is everywhere. It might feel really dark right now, and it might feel like we're miles away from all of it, but he is here in every single street, and he is walking those streets, and he is sending angels to start cleaning those streets up, and he's going to start a revival like nothing we've ever seen before. And he cares. Oh, his heart is so deep for us, but our hearts need to be just as deep. They can't be as deep as God, because God is God, but they need to be deep for him. They need to be willing to go into those places that are scary, that are hard. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I told God, like, this hurts so much, I can't do this. And then the Lord would show me that picture of me feeding that dough. And I felt the strength to continue on through this forgiveness journey. And it is a journey. It's not a quick, done, fix, healed, go on my life kind of deal. It's a journey. It's a life. It's our lives, It's a millisecond in the timeline of Jesus, of what God sees. but to us it feels like, forever kind of thing. But yeah, really rest in him. Really think about it. Do we want a complicated theology, or do we want a simple theology? Do we want simple food, or do we want complicated food? I mean, we can do a lot of things for Jesus, but are we doing it for Jesus, or are we doing it for ourselves? I hear a lot of people like, oh, I'm fasting. Well, that's great. But are you fasting for yourself? Are you fasting for Jesus? Or are you fasting because you want Jesus to come into it? Ask yourself those questions. I think I have a lot to learn and a lot of places to go because, well, I've been silenced for a long time. And maybe it's time I stop being silenced. Maybe this is Jesus' way of saying, hey, it's time to get that bullhorn out, start, announcing my presence, announcing who I am to others, and showing them. I want the light to just shine for me, and I want my words to speak truth and honesty and goodness. He's a wonderful, beautiful God. He's not an angry God. He is a just, beautiful God. And he's not a God of wrath, as we often perceive. He is a God of mercy and love. I mean, he sent his son. He brutalized his son on the cross for our sins. Just brutalized. And, I mean, we can't even comprehend how much agony that had to be for the Lord, because that was his son. That was a part of him. And Mary being in the midst of all that, that was her son, the child she raised, the agony she must have felt. We don't often think about that. We often float in the happy and the joy and Jesus is good, or, life is good. But we also need to remember that life is good and joy is good because someone had to suffer for it, We didn't have to suffer for it. We make ourselves suffer for it, but we don't have to suffer for it. God already sent someone to do it, and his name is Jesus. So I hope you all are blessed this Easter season, and I'm excited to see what else the Lord has to say. I may give another post tonight, I may not. We'll see. But I love you, world. I hope you guys are doing well. Virtual hug.